SOS 5 rapid presses. The phone vibrated slightly, confirming activation. The Coast Guard monitored these GPS distress signals. At least she prayed they did. Both hands on your knees. Marcus ordered. She complied, leaving the phone in her pocket. A few seconds later, he seemed to remember it. Your phone. Take it out slowly and slide it across the deck with trembling fingers. She retrieved the phone and sent it sliding toward him. He picked it up and, without even glancing at the screen, threw it overboard, where it disappeared into the blue depths. Such a shame, he said, settling onto the opposite bench while keeping the gun trained on her. I actually liked you. Janine, you were always the smart one in the family, but also the one who knew when to stay away. You should have kept it that way, Marcus. I don't understand. Stop. He shook his head. We're past that now. You want to know something ironic? I thought taking you out here would actually help clear me of suspicion. Think about it. Who would take someone diving for bodies if they were the murderer? It's like returning to the scene of the crime with a witness. Completely illogical. A harsh laugh escaped him. But I underestimated. You didn't know you were that smart, that you'd still suspect me, even with such an obvious indication of innocence. I should have remembered you were always the analytical one. Meredith was all heart, but you think everything through. Marcus, please, that's unfortunate for you. Now his voice carried a note of genuine regret. Very unfortunate for you, but not for me. I've come too far to let anyone destroy what I've built, even someone I once considered family. The boat rocked gently in the swells, the peaceful ocean. A stark contrast to the horror unfolding on deck somewhere. In the distance, a seabird cried. Janine kept her breathing steady, clinging to the hope that her SOS had been received, that help was coming. But as Marcus adjusted his grip on the gun, his expression settling into grim determination, she knew her. Time was running dangerously short. Marcus settled back against the gunwale, the pistol steady in his hand. His eyes had taken on a distant quality, as if he were looking past. Janine too, that night 5 years ago. You want to know what happened? Fine, you deserve that much. Before he trailed off, then straightened. That Friday night, I arrived exactly when I said I would. 7:30. I even brought a bottle of Chateau Margaux. 2005 vintage, $2. Nothing but the best to celebrate the tech gift. Contract. Janine remained frozen on the bench, acutely aware of every slight movement of the gun. They were so happy to see me. Marcus continued. Meredith had made her famous seafood, pagella. David clapped me on the back, said we were going to conquer the world together. We sat right there in their dining room, toasting our success. His voice took on a bitter edge. Then during the main course, Meredith stood up, said she had an announcement. I thought maybe they'd finally set a wedding date. But no, she put her hand on her stomach and told us she was pregnant. 8 weeks. Along the boat rocked gently, and Marcus adjusted his stance without ever letting the gun waver. You should have seen David's face. It was like someone had lit him from within. He jumped up, swept her into his arms, spinning her around right there in the dining room. When he sat her down, he was already talking about the future, how this changed everything, how he wanted to build something stable, something local, a legacy for his child. He said. Marcus's jaw tightened. I sat there watching my entire life's work crumble. Years of 18-hour days, of sacrifices, of building, innovate from nothing. The expansion plans that would have made us giants in the industry, gone because of an unplanned pregnancy. So you killed them. Janine's voice came out as a whisper. I came prepared for multiple outcomes that night. His tone was matter-of fact now, as if discussing a business transaction. In my jacket pocket, I had a small vial of cyanide, colorless, odorless, perfect. I'd actually brought it in case the negotiations went badly, in case David completely refused the expansion. A last resort. He shifted slightly. The late afternoon sun casting his shadow across the deck. They were so happy they barely noticed when I went to the kitchen to help with dessert. Meredith had made tiramisu. While they were in the dining room, still glowing with their news, I poured 3 glasses of desert wine. The cyanide went into 2 of them. Janine's stomach churned. You poisoned them during their celebration. I proposed a final toast to new beginnings. I said to the future. A hollow laugh escaped him. They died within minutes, quick, relatively. Painless, they were holding hands when it happened. At least I gave them that. The casualness of his confession made it even more horrific. He spoke of murder the way others might discuss a difficult business decision. The rest was logistics, he continued. I had tarps in my boat, those same industrial ones you saw at the boathouse, wrapped them carefully used, diving weights from my gear to ensure they'd sink-loaded them onto the boat, using the dock cart. It was past midnight by then, no moon, perfect conditions. You threw them in the ocean, 400 feet of water, 2 miles past the reef. No recreational diver goes that deep. The currents there would scatter any evidence. I spent 3 hours cleaning that house, with bleach, every surface, every glass, every trace of that dinner made it look like they'd simply vanished. Marcus reached into his jacket pocket with his free hand and pulled out a small glass vial filled with clear liquid. The same batch. Actually, I always keep some on hand. You never know when a problem might need a permanent solution. You're insane. I'm practical. He held up the vial, watching the liquid shift inside. Now, it's your turn, Janine. Once you're gone, no one will ever know your phone's at the bottom of the ocean. The radio's destroyed. As far as anyone knows, you went back to San Francisco after visiting the beach house. Another tragedy for the Caldwell family. People saw us leave together, Harold. Alina. Harold saw me leave alone. I'll tell him you decided not to come, Alina. He shrugged. She's learnt to keep her mouth shut. Drink it. He extended the vial toward her, the gun still steady in his other hand. Janine's eyes flicked past him to the horizon, where she caught a glimpse of white and orange, a Coast Guard cutter still distant, but approaching fast. Her SOS had worked. Marcus caught her glance and turned to look. The Coast Guard vessel was clearly visible now, perhaps 10 minutes away, but closing rapidly. Damn it. He turned back to her, his calm facade cracking. Drink it now. When you're gone, there's no proof, no evidence, just the word of a grieving friend who tried to help search for bodies. As he turned to check the Coast Guard's progress again, Janine saw her only chance. She lunged forward, grabbing for the gun. Marcus reacted instantly, his superior strength evident as they grappled on the wet deck. The vial went flying, shattering against the gunwale. You stupid. He slammed her back against the deck, pinning her down with his weight. The gun had away in their struggle, but his hands found her throat. Janine clawed at his arms, her vision starting to blur. He was dragging her toward the rail, intent on throwing her overboard. The ocean waited below, ready to claim another victim. The sound of powerful engines grew louder. Marcus glanced up to see the Coast Guard cutter bearing down on them, officers visible on deck. He released Janine and dove for the gun, but she managed to kick it further away. Coast Guard, stop what you're doing and put your hands up. The amplified voice boomed across the water. Within moments, officers were rappelling onto the Siri. Weapons drawn. Marcus made one last desperate grab for the gun, but an officer tackled him to the deck. No, you don't understand. Marcus shouted as they cuffed him. She's lying. I was trying to help. We were searching for bodies. More officers swarmed the boat, one immediately attending to Janine, while others secured Marcus. He continued to struggle, alternating between claims of innocence and incoherent rage. Sir, stop resisting, an officer commanded as they wrestled him under control. 5 years. Marcus screamed. 5 years. I built that company. They were going to destroy everything. You don't understand what I sacrificed. As they dragged him toward the Coast Guard vessel, his eyes met Janine's one last time. The calculating businessman was gone, replaced by something wild and desperate. "You should have stayed away," he said. "You should have left it alone." Then he was gone, transferred to the cutter in custody, and Janine was left sitting on the deck of his boat, shaking and alive as the sun began its descent toward the Pacific horizon. The emergency room at Monterey General Hospital smelled of antiseptic and floor wax. Janine sat on the examination table while a nurse carefully documented the bruises forming on her throat and arms. Detective Flores stood nearby, his notebook, outpatient but eager for her statement. "The Coast Guard confirms they received your emergency SOS," he said, smart thinking triggering it without him noticing. "Your phone's GPS led them right to you." Janine nodded, wincing as the nurse pressed against a particularly tender spot. Her voice came out raspy from Marcus. "Attempted strangulation. I pressed it when he told me to sit down. He was focused on the gun. You can give your full statement when you're ready, no rush." But Janine needed to talk, needed to purge the horror of what she'd learned as the nurse worked. She told Detective Flores everything: Elena's revelation about the boat, the business documents showing the expansion plans, Marcus's complete confession on the boat. He said he put cyanide in their wine during dessert, that they died within minutes. Her voice broke. They were celebrating the baby. Detective Flores's expression was grim as he took notes. His confession during interrogation matches what you've told us. He broke down completely, gave us every detail, seemed almost relieved to finally tell someone. A knock on the door interrupted them. Another detective entered, speaking quietly to Flores. His face grew even more somber as he listened. He said, turning back to her, "Our forensics team has been processing Marcus's boat. Despite his efforts with the bleach, they found microscopic blood traces in the deck seams. DNA analysis will take time, but the blood type matches your sister and David." Janine closed her eyes, the clinical confirmation somehow making it more real. "There's more," Flores continued gently. "We pulled the GPS history from his boat's navigation system. Marcus wasn't as clever as he thought. The system keeps a log of anchor points. On the night of the disappearance, his boat was anchored at the beach house dock until 2:15 a.m., then traveled to a point approximately 2 miles past Pescadero Reef. He anchored there for 43 minutes before returning to port. 400 feet of water," Janine whispered. "That's what he said. We've dispatched a deep water recovery team. The coordinates are exact. They should be able to." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "To recover your sister and David." The nurse finished her examination and quietly left. Detective Flores pulled a chair closer to where Janine sat. "The recovery team has already reported preliminary findings to bodies wrapped in industrial-grade tarps that match the ones in Marcus' boathouse, weighted with diving equipment from his personal gear according to the serial numbers. The medical examiner will need to confirm, but the circumstances align with cyanide poisoning. It would have been quick. He built his empire on their murders." Janine said the words, tasting bitter. "Used their deaths to take full control of Innovate Tech, pushed through his expansion plans without David to stop him, all while playing the grieving best friend, maintaining their house like a shrine, the perfect cover." Flores agreed. Who would suspect the man who spent 5 years honoring their memory? He even established a foundation in their names. Blood money. Janine reached for her tote bag, which the Coast Guard had recovered from Marcus's boat. Meredith's journal was still inside, slightly damp from the ocean spray, but intact. She clutched it to her chest with his detailed confession and the physical evidence Marcus Ashford will never see freedom again. Detective Flores assured her multiple murder charges. "Kidnapping, attempted murder for what he tried to do to you. He'll die in prison," but that was cold comfort. Janine opened the journal to that final entry, her sister's hopeful words. Blurring through tears, Meredith had been so certain that the pregnancy announcement would bring everyone together, would remind them what truly mattered. Instead, it had signed their death warrant. She wrote that she felt uneasy about the dinner. Janine said, tracing the words with her finger. Some instinct warned her, but she pushed through it. She wanted so badly to share their joy. "I'm sorry." Detective Flores said simply, "I'm so very sorry." Janine thought about the baby, who never had a chance to be born, another victim of Marcus' greed, a life snuffed out. Before it could even properly begin, her sister would have been a wonderful mother. David would have been the kind of father who coached Little League and read bedtime stories, all of it stolen for profit margins, an international expansion. Outside the hospital window, dark clouds had rolled in from the Pacific. The first drops of rain began to streak the glass, growing quickly into a steady downpour. The same storm system that had provided cover for the Coast Guard's approach now washed over Terry Bay. As if the sky itself was grieving, Janine held her sister's journal tight, watching the rainfall. Finally knowing the truth, but finding no peace in it.